All set.
All right, good evening. This is the meeting of the Community Preservation Committee on Wednesday, April 21st. We're meeting remotely via Zoom. And I will first read our standard script. I'm Peter Pingator, the chair of the CPC. And let me confirm that each one of you can hear me. I'll call your name. And if you can respond to the affirmative, starting with committee members and then moving on to staff. Paul Alpert.
Here.
And Joe Barnes.
Here.
Artie Crocker.
Here.
Bob Dermody is absent. Laura Dorfman.
Here.
And Penny Kirk is absent. Chris Gersel.
Here.
And Rick Zimbo.
I am here.
Okay, our staff members, Karis Lustig.
Here.
And Cecilia Simchuk.
Here.
Kristen Wright.
Here.
Okay. Good evening. This is an open meeting of the Community Preservation Committee. We're conducting it remotely pursuant to the governor's order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. As such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. Tonight's meeting will not feature public comment. We are convening by Zoom app. The Zoom app address is on tonight's meeting agenda, which has been posted online. Members of the public can follow along. Please note the meeting is being recorded. Some attendees are participating by video conference. Do not, take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you share could be viewed and captured by recording. All of our meeting materials should have been provided to you, which I think consists of a meeting agenda and correspondence from Dr. Gudenkantz, superintendent of the Needham Public Schools. I'll notify the committee if there are any additional materials and the public can follow along. I'll introduce, per our standing rules, I'll introduce speakers, or speakers can introduce themselves. We just want to make sure that there's a clear record of who is speaking and when they are speaking. Let's not talk over each other. I'll introduce speakers. I see there's a hand up from Mr. Zimbo. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions. Number one, can you share with me when the letter from Dr. Gudenkantz came out?
It was an email, and it was the day following the chair's meeting. And did we share that, Karis? Do members of the committee have it?
I will have to double check. It is possible that I did not send it out. I thought I did, but
Okay.
it could have slipped through. If not, I will make sure that it gets sent out right after this meeting. It was on the agenda as an item.
Okay, so why don't I do this, and I will read the letter. I will read the email as soon as I find it on my email program.
Mr. Chair, then maybe I went out of order. I should have mentioned the first one versus the second one.
All right, why don't you go with the second one?
Well, I thought it would be appropriate that we just acknowledge those committee members who were successful in their town meeting member elections this year. I think there are at least a couple on the committee that maybe one returning or two returning and one new. And I think it's great to have them once again on town meeting floor.
All right, so that would probably fall under any other issues following, but that's okay. We'll take that first. And we, although I am the chair, we'll put that under chairman's announcements. All right, so let me yield the floor to you. Are there certain members of the committee that ran for town meeting and are successful? Rick?
Laura and Paul, were you successful?
I was successful. Thank you.
And how about Joe Barnes?
Yes, I ran and I was successful.
Okay, so we have 3 people who ran and have been either elected for the first time or re-elected.
But
Right?
I ran against nobody. Does that matter? I mean, that's not really running.
That doesn't
Best way
matter.
to run.
It doesn't
And
matter.
so
How do you think Paul Albert wins his elections?
Exactly.
First letter of the alphabet.
Laura, people were scared to run against you. That was
Yeah, we have a long tradition of uncontested elections here.
Artie,
Yeah.
my husband ran against me.
Actually, I
My
believe,
husband ran and I beat him, but
I
he
believe
still got on because there were 2 openings.
Okay, that's
I believe that I'm in the same precinct as Joe.
Yes.
And I was very disappointed to see that Joe actually was the highest vote getter in our precinct, and I was 4th.
Well, I'll tell you,
I'm always hoping to be number 1, and Joe beat me out considerably. this year.
well, to quote my wife, she said, "Who says you can't fool some of the people all the time?"
Hey, Paul, you got to remember, you're on the planning board.
That's true.
That gives you a
I lost votes.
that gives you a 20% deficit to begin with. Nothing personal against the planning board, Paul. I'm just being realistic here.
I know you won't vote for me, Artie, but I don't think you're in my district.
I just said nothing personal against you. I'm just giving you a realistic thing.
all right. So that's great. I mean, congratulations to everyone who ran. We had a huge turnout too. A large number of new voters and voters that just normally don't turn out for off-year elections. So we can congratulate everyone who did in fact get out and vote. And so that was a significant election. So, all right, Rick, that's 2 points. You want to congratulate our re-elected and elected members.
And then the
And
other
yes.
one was the letter from Dr. Goodicamp.
All right, so then what we'll do is we're going to discuss that under chairman's update. So I guess chairman's update is going to be lead into our discussion. So the update is that we had our chairs meeting. Rick Zambone joined me in the chairs meeting, and so we'll do a download, and Rick and I will trade off. Okay, Rick, I'll go first, and you can fill in. All right.
Yep.
So there are representatives of the school committee, the finance committee, the select board, CPC, permanent public building, and then representatives of Needham schools. So Dr. Gudenkamp, and then our other members of the executive branch, like senior members of administration, like Kate Fitzpatrick. So for our purposes, what we discussed was the issue of financing and a financing plan for Emory Grover. And the upshot of it was that there was no financing plan currently in place. And that the proposal that came out of it was that there would be a committee formed with multiple members with multiple representatives from each of the boards on the committee. And the committee would work during the summer. So there would be summer work. And what would be anticipated is that at our October special town meeting, there would be a presentation on Emory Grover, which I believe would involve not only, I guess we haven't gotten to this point, but by that time there would be a financing plan in place. So, and so we would be voting, CPC would be voting on either design or design and finance funds as part of our October special meeting. So we're going to couple things to note. One is that would be probably the first time, although I guess in our last, Karis, did we take CPC articles out of order in our special October meeting this past during the pandemic? I can't recall.
We did, and we have in the past, I believe. the Newman Eastman project was done out of order, and I think parts of Rosemary Recreation Complex were done in the special town meeting. Whether it was
So-
a design or feasibility, I can't remember.
So we'd have to take it out of order, out of a funding cycle. We normally don't do that. I think there's chairman's, it's the chairman's prerogative or chairman's discretion to allow that to come out of order, to funding the cycle to go out of order, out of the funding cycle order. So that was kind of the net result of it. There were other component parts that didn't have as much to do with us, but that's the Emory Grover and CPC part of it. I think that I tried to represent fairly the sense of the committee, because I did express a concern that we expressed the sentiment that we wanted to do what we could to retain the building and keep the building. There was support for preserving the building, but there was concern about the amount of financing involved. And with respect to going forward with this particular warrant article, there was concern among the committee about how it would be received at town meeting if we didn't have a financing plan in place. I expressed a concern that would be a natural question on the town meeting floor, and that it could lose a lot of support if we couldn't answer the question of how we were going to finance construction. And that would probably not, I didn't think it was good for us to be in a position where we're putting the voters in that spot, and we could potentially lose the vote and potentially have voters getting in the habit of turning away from Emory Grover and preserving it. So I expressed a concern that we not go forward with this CPC warrant article concerning Emory Grover. I had expressed an interest in having the Needham Public Schools withdraw the request, the application. I thought that's how we left it. And then with the communication that I got received from Dr. Gudenkens, he asked that we not take any action. So rather than withdrawing, he asked that we in the select board not take any action with respect to the application. He said, I understand the net result of that would be that the select board would be withdrawing the warrant article, but that would be his request. I might as well finish with that, which is I think that there's some procedural issues there, but I just think that we probably could take care of it by having a motion to table the matter. That's probably how we can address it just as easily, but I'm willing to hear from everyone on the board as to whether or not that procedurally makes sense. I think that it does. The other matters that were discussed concerned two other capital projects for a school committee and how it fits into their capital plan. The Mitchell School and the Pollard School. And then there was some other discussion about other finance committee issues that they had with some of the warrant articles that were not really of our concern. There was quibbling about how much money should be in the reserve conserving the police and fire station. Didn't concern us, but what they tried to do was bring all the constituent groups together, try to iron things out, try and reach an agreement as best they could. With respect to our particular issue, the agreement we agreed to was we weren't going to take any action, and that we're going to work over the summer to try and figure out a way to put together a financing plan to see if we can have Emory Grover move forward as the administrative, as the site for school administration. How does that sound to you, Rick?
Yeah, that's a good synopsis, Peter. I think the other important part was, I believe, and I don't know if this is reflected in Dr. Gudekantz's letter, but I believe that before they could withdraw anything, they needed to have a public meeting of the school committee. And I don't believe that that's scheduled until next week. So that may be one of the complicating factors. I'm not sure. But the other aspect of it is the finance committee was really pushing for a total look at all of the capital items, not just the ones that we just mentioned. They wanted to examine it because there's a concern Obviously, as the, how much debt as a town we can continue to support. And so they wanted to take a look at it and then come back with some prioritization, because they felt that we just couldn't say yes to everything and accomplish what we needed to do. I think that's kind of my interpretation of where the finance committee was coming down.
Yeah, I think that that's right, because if they're going to try and finance the part that we're not financing through just the tax levy, right? With that,
Right.
then they're bumping into a lot of issues, including the 10% rule and all that kind of stuff. So they need to figure that out. So with that, I think that the meeting was chaired by the chair of the select board. And so what I understood was that he was going to be getting back to us about how the committee was going to be constructed. So my view of it from my side, from here, there's part of it that I'm going to surprise Karis about, which is that I know that we're probably going to have 2 seats at the table, and it probably makes sense. I think that it makes sense for me as chair to be at the table. I also think that it makes sense for Rick to be at the table. And then I don't know if we're going to have a third. I'm looking over at Karis. If we are going to have a third, I do have some. My inclination, I'll just tell the committee this, is to ask Bob Dermody to join, because he's on it's the Emery River project that he's the liaison for. So I haven't spoken to Karis about it. I haven't had a chance, and I don't know how large the committee is going to be. But if at some point the committee can become pretty unwieldy, if it's going to be 12 or 18 members, then they may want to skinny it down to something like 9. But how does, I'm trying, how does that sound? Well, first of all, the issue of who represents the committee, CPC, on this blue ribbon committee. How do you as committee members feel about that? Good, bad? Do you object? Any sense?
I think they're wise choices. I would support that.
Artie, how do you feel about that?
I think it makes sense. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, Bob makes a lot of sense. He's been the liaison. Rick certainly makes a lot of sense, because a lot of the financial background, and over time work with that, and of course the chair. There's no need to have a vice chair there. I mean, I've had nothing to do with the project from except for our discussion. No need for me to be there.
All right, Chris.
I know with Park and Rec, it's safety in numbers, that you don't want to make it too big, but if you have a group of 2 to 3, if you're presenting in front of the finance committee or any other committee, we like to go as one, decent group. So I think a 3 is a good number to go with.
Okay, so that's, you're saying, in a way, Karis, if we can get 3, that would be good. And I don't know. Well, and she may have the answer to that already. Do you know? Do you have any sense? No. Okay.
No, I think they're trying to get as many people as they can to get as much consensus building without making it unwieldy. So I think it's really going to depend on the full numbers. But remember, the other committees can't have a full quorum. So like the select board can only have 2 people represent them. Otherwise they get a quorum. So for this body, it would be no more than 4 people could be on the committee.
For this,
Because there's 9 people, so a quorum would be 5 people. So we can only have 4 or less people.
Yeah, I got it. I understand. Oh, perfect. Fine. Got it. Okay. All right. So, all right. So that's, yes, Laura.
So if there's room, just for my own edification and learning experience, I would love to be part of it. But if there's not enough room and you think it's too many, then that's fine too.
Okay. So Laura's good. I'm glad that you said that. Kind of related to that is, we have, and this is one of these things that's kind of a little, I'm thinking about it and I don't have complete my thoughts are kind of inchoate, but we have our Nuare vision statement that has been kind of delivered to each committee. And with this kind of open question about trying to integrate these principles into your work. And so my thinking on that is, we as individuals need to sit down and read those documents and make sure that we have read them. And I do think that that's kind of one of those, I do think that we can accomplish a lot through subcommittees. And so I haven't thought about this fully yet, but I thought that that was also a committee, a subcommittee of 3 that can take those vision statements and because one of the principles is, how are you going to integrate these principles into your work as a committee, and organize that and present that to our committee? Because I really don't feel comfortable about having received it, read it, and not actually putting it down as an action item as to what we did. I guess why don't all of us collectively think about that, and then at our next meeting, I think my idea was going to be that we have a subcommittee of 3, but we'd have to actually have to come up with an idea of what the subcommittee should be doing, and then come back and report to us. So whatever work needs to be done about that vision statement in terms of integrating it into our work as a committee, I think we could do the kind of granular work on it in a subcommittee, and then report back to us, the full committee, about what it is that we should be doing. So I'm saying that that's kind of an agenda item out there that we need to kind of resolve, I think, sooner rather than later. And I apologize, I probably should have thought more about it before tonight's meeting. Anyone's thoughts on that? I mean, I assume the planning board's got to address this stuff, right, Paul? I mean, the Park and Rec has to address this. So what's going on your committees? How about Chris? I don't mean to put you in the hot seat, but have you guys done anything at Park and Rec? You have a plan?
In regards to what meeting for this town meeting, or?
No, for the Nuare vision statement and integrating it into your work as a committee.
So what we are doing is actually, we have a new member that is starting on Monday that just got elected. So we wanted to wait to get the new member to kind of get that person's input of how we're going to input it. But it is something that we will address in a very soon to be meeting.
Okay.
And we will get an action plan in place. But do we have a definitive date? No.
But you have an idea. I mean, you're moving on it in the sense of you're putting it on it's an action item that's going to get done.
Yes, it is an action item that will be constantly on the agenda that we have.
Okay, so I guess maybe the short answer is we need to make sure that's an action item for our committee too, and that's really my responsibility to make that happen. So, all right, Rick.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. I just, as you're talking, I think one of the items that would be helpful is for all of the existing committee members to have someone put together and identify when their particular term ends, so that we know when there's a replacement coming, and we could ask the appointing body to incorporate their thought process with whoever it is they're going to be appointing to the committee, that it falls within the goals of the guidelines that we have, so that we can make sure that there's a broad representation on this committee. Because I don't think that's been a criteria in the past, and it might be worth, kind of thinking about at least identifying when the group of us here, our terms expire, and so that we can kind of be a little bit more proactive in dealing with the appointing authority.
All right, so that's just one big bullseye action item that we can say, this is what we're going to do. Actually, you're actually coming up with an idea about what to do in order to execute on the Nuare principles, right? So that's good. That's a great idea. And in appointing a board like this, where everyone is appointed, is perfect for that, right? You're not open to elections. This is
Correct.
the point, right? So that should be, that's a great idea. And so we got to we have to put that down. That's a great idea. We need to write that down and make sure we do that as one of our any number of things. Okay. So it may be just as easy. It may be that we should have a meeting around this after we read our materials. So let me just think about that. Okay. And I guess we should all think about that. I'm a little worried about meeting fatigue with you guys because we haven't really had an off season, but would you be up for that if we had a meeting around the Nuwari principles, or do we need to do that as part of another, as part of some other agenda, as an agenda item in another meeting? Should we have a special meeting for it? Any thoughts? Yes. Karen?
Peter, I do know a few other boards that are waiting to take it up after town meeting.
Yeah.
And since we'll be meeting through the summer anyways, we could always address that in our first meeting over the summer.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for taking me off the hook. And I was really planning on doing that after town meeting anyway. Tonight is hat night. This is our last meeting before town meeting. Okay, so this is yes, Laura. Okay.
Karis, do you know what other committees or boards or commissions are doing, or is it too soon to really know that?
No, I think everyone's I think everyone at this point is digesting the statement, and I think figuring out how it applies to them. So I've only listened in on one other board talk about it, which happened to be the solid waste and recycling board. So they're trying to figure out how does that relate to their mission? So I think it's the same thing.
I can't even comment on that one.
Yeah. So it's the same thing. It's trying to figure out what does it mean to your composition? What does it mean to the mission of the actual work that we do?
This sort of seems to me like, rather than, this is completely outside of my purview, but rather than leave it to all the committees and boards to come up with this should be a directive from the town that says you need to adopt these. And then it's up to us to adopt them. It shouldn't be like the select board asks that your board consider applying and integrating these. We're interested in your perspectives and input going forward. It should say, this is my opinion. This is how we feel about it. And we expect every board, committee, and commission to adhere to this and provide us from time to time input on how you're doing that. That's how I feel like this should go.
So I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are, well, not a lot of people, while some of the boards are waiting for town meeting to go through its process, because then town meeting will also, in theory, be adopting this if they pass the warrant that adopts these goals. And I think it has more to do just with the nature of the government structure. So it's hard for one elected board to impose on another elected board a particular requirement. And so that's why it's sort of seen as optional for each board. But I think a lot of individuals are looking at guidance from town meeting as sort of that referendum to say that the whole community supports this.
Yeah, and I think this is probably, not in a bad way, but just documenting that we're on this, and, so that we can say, we're responsive and we're doing the right thing. Not to say that the town doesn't want to, but I feel like it's so preliminary now. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I do think we need to put this on an agenda item, and we'll put it on during the summer in our after town meeting. It'll be an agenda item. Okay, and along with working on Emery Grover, assuming that we have a vote. All right, so do we have, all right, so I'm sorry, I really did kind of muddle this up a little bit, but do we have, with respect to Emery Grover, what I would propose is that we have a motion to table the application. We could, and I don't know that we need to, we would table it generally, and then we would take it off the table procedurally when we meet again at our first meeting following town meeting. That would be the motion to table.
When you say take it off the table, Peter, you mean revisit it again?
Yeah.
Untable it, yeah, okay.
And Peter, and this is a this is doing it as a technicality, so it's not seen as a withdrawal type of thing. So we're doing it this way versus another way, which is accomplishes the same goal as far as taking it up after town meeting. I just want to make sure I understand.
So procedurally, we're pretty limited, but Karis, you want to speak to that? But what we can't withdraw it. This is an application that was submitted by an applicant. We can vote it up or down, or we could table it.
So I would,
Karis?
we have a process that we've established in our community preservation plan, which I will just also put out there that probably should be revisited. It's about the cycle that we normally review that plan and process. And so we had sort of set a date that says that applications must be in by, I think it's the first day or the first week of December, I apologize. So because the application process that we have established wouldn't open up again until December, there wouldn't be an opportunity for the school department to resubmit an application for Emery Grover. So instead of voting it up or down, we would just be deferring it. And Kristen had suggested language that we would defer it to a time certain, so that we would be deferring this application as opposed to tabling it.
Yeah, you could defer to a time certain if you're going to give us a time certain. Kristen, if you guys have a date, we can definitely put the motion that way. Definitely. Do we have a date?
Can we defer it?
You need a date certain. So we need to set up a time.
Can we defer it for consideration for the fall special town meeting?
Works for me.
I don't understand. Okay. All right, that's fine. I mean, it's close.
We don't have a summer meeting schedule, so it's tough to say we're going to pick it back up, because when we worked on October town meeting before, the last one was Seabed's Way. And the limit of the application is it has to be submitted before December 1st, but it doesn't have a time that like a start time, right? So someone could apply right now for the 23 cycle. And there's nothing stopping them from doing that either. They have to get it in by December 1st of this year. There's nothing stopping them from putting it in today. So there's all sorts of great loopholes and things that we can definitely talk about. But I mean, we don't have a summer schedule. So time certain did the school committee say they're going to come back to the committee at any certain time or in August, or I wasn't.
So what, I mean, you could actually table, you could continue it to a date certain and give us a Wednesday in August. And then the first matter on it agenda will be the consideration of it. And then what we're going to end up doing is continuing again until the last meeting prior to the October special meeting. So now we have date certains on both ends. That's one way of doing it. Right? I think. So my only point is, I think you need to continue to a date certain.
Would August 11th be available before?
Can't you just defer it to the next meeting of the Community Preservation Committee?
Well, I don't have any plans for August 11th.
I do, I'm on vacation.
I assume August is going to be tough. It doesn't have to be at our next meeting. So we don't have a proposed schedule for our summer meetings. But let's just deal with that now. Did you think, was it your idea that we were going to be meeting in August or in September, Karis?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I might suggest, why don't we just defer action on this item to our first meeting in the fall?
Okay.
Second.
I mean, I don't think a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing, but that kind of motion usually requires a date certain, but I guess we could say to the first scheduled meeting of the fall. That could be, it's fine.
Fine, fall. Do you mean after Labor Day? Which is
After Labor Day.
early fall?
Fine.
Why don't we say the first meeting
After the 1st of September.
after the 1st of September? That's good. I think that gets us there.
Do you need a second?
Okay, so who made that motion? That's Rick's and Bones' best motion. Second, Chris Gerstle?
Gerstle.
Okay, good. All right, discussion. Hearing none. Let's have a vote. Alpert,
Aye.
Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
Aye.
Dorfman,
Aye.
Gerstle,
Aye.
Zambone,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, next item is summer schedule planning. Here we go. All right, Kristen, what's your idea? Kristen and Karis, what are your ideas? Karis, are you going to be with us through the summer?
I actually realized I should be deferring to Cecilia on this.
Okay, good.
As
All right,
we will be handing over basically a town meeting.
you're handing over town meeting?
Yep. Well,
Right, so-
just after town meeting. Yep.
All right, so now then the two of you, let's talk about this now. Then I guess we can all, Cecilia, Karis, Kristen, what's the plan for our summer schedule?
So I think it depends what we're taking on as far as tasks that need to be accomplished over the summer. So if the finance group is kind of going to go on its own, do you want them to be reporting back during the summer? Are we going to be looking at the community preservation plan over the summer? And it looks like we'd also be considering the new WARI statement as well over the summer.
All right, I think there's a part of me that wants to kick the can down the road on looking at the plan. Only because I think that I feel like it's flexible enough that we've been able to operate pretty well with it. But if we want to take that on, I mean, that's fine.
So in
Yeah.
some ways, we've been making some small tweaks and modifications to it by some of the decisions that we made this year. So I know increasing the contribution to the community housing, that sort of is a modification of that plan. So there has been sort of ad hoc changes made to it as we've gone through the year.
Yeah. Well, so we have two issues to deal with in this summer. Preparation, dealing with Emery Grover, and that's kind of there's a subcommittee dealing with that, and Nuare, and that's the full committee. I think if we're going to take a deeper look at the plan, based on how the plan was put together the first go round, it went across, we had a very big board and representatives from a lot of different constituent groups on the original plan, on the committee that came up with the original plan. So it doesn't sound to me like it's something that this committee, maybe I'm wrong, but can this committee meet and make changes to the plan?
Yes, I believe it has before.
Oh, okay. So then that makes it a little easier. So that's not that hard. We may be able to make, that's not bad. We're not, because we're usually during the funding cycle, we're doing a lot of reading, a lot of due diligence. Here, we're doing some work during the summer. You got to look at the plan, redline it, highlight issues that you think we should be changing. So it's not a major rewrite. Is that what we anticipate? But there are probably some good resources out there from the
Community Preservation
Coalition that we can rely on. So that's fine. If we're up for that, then we would need, I don't know that we need a subcommittee to do that. We just need to get some resources in front of us, and we could probably do it all as a group. Are we up for that? Anyone? Are we up for that?
Yes.
We could say no. You could say, I don't want to do that. Paul, is your term, when is your term ending, Paul?
My term is ending, so I'm abstaining from this whole discussion.
All right.
I'm expecting that at the first planning board meeting after town meeting, we will be choosing my successor,
Okay.
because I'm.
So I don't have a problem with heading, like I can deal with, you know, talking to Stuart and doing some research with the Community Preservation Alliance, coming up with some ideas. It's really a reading and highlighting exercise. And we've all read the plan before. Let's work on that during the summer. Right?
I also think it would be a good time to look at the plan if we do end up adopting those Nuari goals, to
Yeah.
then look at the plan through that lens.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a great idea. All right. Okay, so that's my responsibility. I'll head that up. Okay. Okay. So, does people have an appetite for meeting at all in August? We should consider doing that. No, Chris is being realistic, saying no.
Nope, it's busy, I'll be honest, busy baseball and vacation time. So
Okay,
August
that's fine.
would be tough.
Fair enough. Okay. Okay, so August is tough. Do we have, let's see, how about July? Does that make sense to meet if we took August off, had a couple of meetings in July?
Yeah.
July's worse than August for me.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
July.
then we'll meet. Okay, so let's just, we're gonna have this, all right, the finance related committee is gonna have to work during the summer.
Oh,
Yep. Artie?
no, that might be.
All right, so July and August, no appetite. And
So why don't
so,
we have a
I mean,
meeting?
I don't have a problem with that. Maybe we could see how many people, although 2 people are not here tonight, but maybe we could see who's available when.
Maybe if we identified some times during those 2 months, rather than just say the whole 2 months in general.
Yeah,
I mean, Mr. Chair, I think we probably should have a meeting after town meeting is over, perhaps in June. We should have one meeting. And I'm assuming that Paul's planning board will have a nominee by then, or a person that would be assigned to the committee by June. And that would be probably a good time for them to kind of at least meet the other committee members and, you know, have a little bit of participation. I'm speaking, Paul, I don't know if you agree with that. Is June?
no, I like that idea. And so if we have a June meeting, we can try and tease out some schedule for meetings during the summer. You know, remember, if we go Zoom, we can meet remotely. Okay, and for some of this stuff, if you think about what we have to do in terms of our work, it's really, there's going to be work around Nuari and work around the plan. That's a lot of work away from the committee, and kind of coming back together, if you will. So I think there's more homework rather than meeting work. So I think that we can still accomplish what we need to accomplish and maybe do it with fewer meetings and with the representatives over to the combined, you know, the Blue Ribbon Committee, doing work and having their own meetings over there. Okay. So I like Rick's idea of getting together and having a meeting in June after town meeting. We can cap and recap and come up with a better plan. And now we can think about some dates. We don't necessarily need to be tied to Wednesday night, because, you know, maybe we can have some flexibility on that. And remember, we can meet remotely. So, and we'll keep the meeting short. Okay. All right. And I know Chris, I know you're busy. I know. And so I know you have a lot of commitments too. I know you do. I understand that.
But if we know the date well in advance, if I need to juggle and move things around, I will. So I think it's a great idea Mr. Zamboni made, that if you start putting out some target dates and people can work around it, I think we can all make it work.
Okay, good. All right,
Karis has advised me, correct me if I'm wrong, Karis, it might not have been you, but I think it was Karis, that my term technically doesn't expire until August. And so, you know,
nice.
I'm expecting that at our first meeting, which is May 18th, after town meeting, we will be selecting somebody to take my place. But if that doesn't happen, I will show up at the June meeting. On behalf of the planning board.
Well, we have to have a little send off for you too. I mean,
I
right?
expect a post-COVID big bash
You and Karis, we'll have to have a dual party.
at one of the restaurants
In
in Needham.
Karis. Yeah.
Has to be in Needham. But you know, you guys have a budget. You've been putting aside 5% each year for administrative and not spending it. So spend it on a party for me.
We'll throw you some chicken wings from afar, Paul.
Okay. But Karis, you're going to be with us through town meeting, right? All right, so now town meeting, let's just wrap it up here. So everybody's going to get their presentations in. By the way, I did put mine in by, 2 of them in by 5 and 1 in by 5:15. And I scrolled through and it was pretty thin. Okay, let me just put it that way. Okay,
Karis, did mine get in by 5? Thank you.
Paul got his in by 5.
I successfully delegated.
Excellent. But I'm saying is, you know, it's definitely an arbitrary deadline. And so it's not like the website closes, right? So there's time. Oh, Karis? Yes.
I do want to indicate, I just took a quick look and I believe it would be in the fall, but I believe both Rick and Joe's terms will also be up and they will need reappointment if they want to continue. So they have 1 additional term they could serve.
Okay, so Rick is an appointee by the moderator. Okay. And Joe was appointed by the select board. Okay. So you should consider, if you're interested in being reappointed, which I hope that you are, I mean, then you should be contacting your appointing authority.
I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, that our staff, Kristen or Cecilia, also contact the moderator and the select board to remind them that they need to act to either reappoint or appoint someone else, so that the seat doesn't go vacant by failure to act on behalf of either the moderator or the select board.
Okay, and also, if you are interested, and I hope that you are, seek reappointment. Express an interest in being reappointed. Okay. But the other thing I want to note is this is one of the few committees in town that has term limits. So there are 2 successive terms and 2 successive terms. That's it. So there is an opportunity for people to rotate off and be replaced in due course. Laura.
This is a procedural question. I don't know if it's time to do that or not, but
Sure.
I've never participated at all, so I'm not sure. I know I'm supposed to introduce, I think. I'm just not sure what I'm supposed to do at town meeting.
Okay. All right. So I'm sorry. So what is all right. So
I just have no idea I was there last year, but I wasn't a town meeting member, so I was sitting outside sort of watching. Apparently this year I'm supposed to be introducing Ed, or I don't know. Am I supposed to do anything or no?
Yes.
Yes.
You actually make the presentation, Laura. We, as the CPC committee, at the town meeting, actually
Really?
do the presentation. If it's a complicated one, we can certainly start it and then ask. For example, then ask the
It's
moderator
not.
if you can bring someone else up.
Presentation is supposed to be done by
Video.
By video, that's right.
by
Yeah.
5 o'clock this afternoon.
That's right. It's all
Yeah,
right.
so well, I didn't do anything.
Okay, hold on. All right, so,
I have no, I know Ed submitted a PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if he copied Karis, Paul, Peter, and me on it. And that's it.
all right, let's deal with that. Wait, Chris had his hand up. Let me just deal with that.
Just to give a little reference, so Laura, I'm in the same boat that you are, that Eddie and I are
Thank
actually
God.
going to be doing the presentation together tomorrow for the historic town common. That I will start off the
Okay.
presentation, hit some of the bullet points, then he will give a brief, hopefully a brief description of some more of the guts of the project, if I can say it that way. And we're going to keep it under 10 minutes, but it will be a, for lack of a better term, a dual presentation that we will be doing, but I will be starting it and going from there.
All right, so
On the
Laura, I would,
project- On the reservoir project, I was supposed to be doing a joint presentation with Tony Delgazo, and Tony said, Paul, you're doing such a good job. Why don't you say what I have drafted to say? And he got off the Zoom call and I did the entire presentation. But you can just introduce Ed and then have him do the presentation.
I just like to, the custom is for the liaison to actually, what we've done in the past is the liaison actually do the presentation. But then we've learned as we've gone along that it makes for a better presentation, especially when we're dealing with very technical issues that Ed is usually covering, to have the proponent participate in the presentation. So the way Chris is handling it should be the way Chris and Ed are doing it, should be the way I would advise you to do it that way, Laura. Now, Paul's got his hand up. Paul.
Yeah, at town meeting, if someone on this article raises a question, the moderator is going to look to you to stand up first and answer the question if you can. And then if you can't answer it, you can ask the moderator to let you defer to Ted Olson.
All right. But we've already dealt with that because we've got him in the habit, the moderator we've pitched all the questions to me but we can defer.
Right.
So let's, in the time before COVID, you would make the presentation at town meeting, stand up, be at the podium, make the presentation. Now we're doing videos. And so it's a good mechanism and it's a convenient mechanism to work together with the proponent and with you. So I would say you may want, we lost Chris, but I'm wondering if Chris if he's actually going to have bullet points or if he's actually just going to make the presentation on the fly. Let's ask him.
There he is.
Chris,
Sorry about that. Had to let
that's
John know.
okay.
No, I will go into I will, as you said, a brief description of the, of the proposal, and with the technical side, that's when Ed will step in. So it's not just going to be immediately reading a line or two. It's probably going to be a good 2 to 3 minute presentation that I have. He then goes into a good 2 to 3 minute presentation, and then we finish up and be done in 8 minutes, maybe 9.
Okay, so Laura, that's how. Now, Laura, what are you presenting on this, on the track, the Phasio?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so that's,
So if Ed's going to be working, I don't even know how I do this, literally, and I don't know if this is something we should talk about offline. I don't know if
we probably
maybe
can deal with that offline, but we've got Chris right here. I think that you should talk to Chris.
Should we piggyback on what you're doing with Ed?
Sure. I mean, what we'll do is
Tomorrow,
I'll give
as
you,
oppo- you know.
tomorrow. What I'll do is I'll give you a call in the morning, Laura, if that's all right. And we'll work out something that works out great. I know I'm doing my presentation with Ed at 8:30 tomorrow morning. I know he has a few meetings later in the morning, so it might be the afternoon that you have to do it with him. But I mean, what we'll do is we'll work out the kinks. So when you do yours, you can just go right through it.
So who does the video? We'll do the rest offline then. Thank you, Chris. I'd appreciate that. I just have, my apologies. I don't know what to do. Now I have a better idea.
All right, Rick.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. The other aspect of this, and by the way, my presentation won't probably go up until Friday at some point. I've just got too many commitments between now and then, so it'll go on It'll go online and it'll be uploaded on Friday. Um, the other issue is I've been in contact, and I'd suggest that we all do this to a degree. The select board and the finance committee typically give their opinion on these articles to town meeting, and they have to also put a presentation up. I had a conversation with one of the newer select board members, Marcus Nelson. Marcus has responsibility for 3 of the community preservation articles. The one that I'm doing, Peter, he also has the one that you're doing, which is the supplemental request for funds. And then I think he also has the project on the trails, and I'm not sure, is that?
It's mine too. Yeah, I better talk to him.
Yeah, and I know that Tom Jacob has the 2 financial articles for the finance committee. It may be helpful if we had the listing of who on the finance committee and who on the select board are going to be making presentations on the CPC articles, so that we could, you could kind of coordinate if they have something, they don't have to repeat yours or whatever it might be. They may have some questions. And so I'm meeting next Monday. I'm meeting with Marcus just to kind of explain to him a lot more, because he's going to have to talk about this. It's a lot more about the funding article that we're presenting with the shift from 11 to 22%. So I'm going to be meeting with him on Monday. Again, there may be others who might want to reach out to their other board members who are doing their presentations as well, just to answer any questions if they have any.
Okay, so that is kind of one of those things that sometimes there's coordination. We often do that because we often do that a little bit on the fly when we're in town meeting, right? Whoever, right? It's like, well, you know what? He's covered everything I wanted to cover, and I support that, and we're going to move on. So now we're a little bit different because things are we're siloed, if you will. So it may make some sense to reach out. I've already put mine, I've already uploaded mine. We do take these things from our particular perspective, though, right? FinCom has a different view than Select Board and has a different view than CPC. It's worth touching base, but I don't know that I would let it dictate what it is that you're going to say.
No, I was suggesting, Mr. Chair, that just to, in Marcus Nelson's case, I understand. I mean, he's got all sorts of questions about even what the basic CPC, what our committee does.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be spending some time with him on that, but particularly good in case somebody asks the question of him. I also heard, and I don't know this, but I think Lakshmi had the Emery Grover, but I don't think it's not going forward. I'm not sure if she still has that or somebody else. I mean, it's just for the new select board members, it might not be a bad idea to find out who's got what article and give them a little bit of a helping hand.
I agree with you, and I'll reach out to Marcus. If you can get me some contact information, I'll reach out to him for my 2 articles that he has. Okay. All right. That's great. All right. So now, but let's deal with Laura. So Laura is going to tag along. She's going to maybe somehow or another. Can you invite someone to watch a Zoom presentation that these guys are? Do we know if we can do that? Because they're going to, if she could actually watch how it goes. No? All right. Fine. You guys will figure it out. Laura, follow the format that Chris and Ed are following. Okay. Short presentation. I don't think it needs to be 2 minutes, by the way. On DeFazio, on that synthetic track, your intro should be 60 seconds.
So I feel like I'm just gonna read off the warrant article, a little bit of it, or to talk to that, and Ed would do his presentation that he
Well, all
created
right.
a PowerPoint around. Is
Yeah, you may
that?
want to add a little more value than just the warrant article, because, you may want to think about that, just add a little bit more, okay? Because more than just that short squib, but that's a good place to
Right. No,
put
I'm
it.
not saying like just read that, but sort of describe the request, right? And then talk about a little bit why. But Ed has a presentation that he's done, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know if does that play into when the proponents have presentations? How does that work in the video or at town meeting?
So wait a minute, just in the video presentation, you'll see it kind of works, they work together. And so it's going to be a version of what Ed has already done in front of us. So you're going to make an introduction. It's almost like a split screen, as I recall. I think you guys, Chris, you guys last year did a split screen of some sort.
Yes, me and Joe Leghorn.
Yeah, okay. Talk to Chris. He's turning into an expert at this. Okay, yeah. Okay, so then, Rick's suggestion is a listing of select board members and finance committee members that are presenting on behalf of our CPC warrant articles, so that we know, and so that there's some at least coordination and maybe at least some reaching out in the case of new select board members in particular. So that's good. Sorry for the dog. If you can hear the dog.
I can't tell, Peter, is the
He
dog?
agrees. He agrees. It's a vote.
Yeah,
I'm a little worried about what it means. So, okay. But remember, like I like to say, the dog was my wife's idea. Okay. All right. Okay.
What is this
Um,
about you, Pete?
Okay. So now, all right. So now, and Rick, could you send me Marcus's contact information?
I will do that, sir.
Okay, good. All right. Have we exhausted all issues? Yes? Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. All right. So now let's have, all right. So our next meeting, we're going to open up a meeting on May 1st. We'll have a meeting on May 1st. And we'll go from there. Okay.
The meeting on May 1st is going to be semi in person separated.
Yeah.
Correct.
I think that I have an issue upstairs. So we're gonna move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
Okay. Okay. So,
Aye.
Aye.
okay. So Alpert,
aye.
Barnes,
Aye.
Crocker,
Aye, aye.
Dorfman,
Aye.
Gersel.
Aye.
Okay. Zimbo
Aye.
and Pingator. The chair votes aye. Thank you very much, and I apologize.
Bye, gang.
Good night. We'll see you May 1st.